Hello, and welcome back to the Born for Trouble podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be looking into the investigative work done by law enforcement and the downfall of Bonnie and Clyde. By 1934, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow had been on the run for over 2 years. The couple was young, widely known, and dangerous. They were wanted in multiple states for robbery and murder. Their rush of fame kept them going. However, behind the headlines and the photos, law enforcement was closing in. They brought Bonnie and Clyde down, not out of luck, but out of well-thought-out plans, patience, and utter betrayal. Let's rewind to late 1933. The Barrow gang had just been through an intense few weeks of shootouts and injuries. The crew had also lost most of their members to death or jail. Despite knowing this and witnessing their friends and family going down firsthand, the couple decided to stay on the run. Fortunately for them, Clyde had become smarter. He constantly switched cars and license plates, and he moved quickly across state lines to avoid being captured. Each time law enforcement thought they had them cornered, he would vanish into thin air. There was one problem with Clyde, though. He was insanely predictable. Clyde was a family man, which was evident in the way they stayed loyal to each other through everything. No matter how dangerous it got for Bonnie and Clyde, he would risk it all just to go back to Dallas, Texas, to visit his parents. This gave the law their first true advantage. In 1934, the Texas Department of Corrections, or the TDC, wanted revenge for his wrongdoings. Clyde had been breaking fellow inmates out of prison, which was embarrassing the authorities, who couldn't stop him. They called in the one man who could take him down, Frank Hamer, a legendary Texas Ranger. Hamer wasn't just a cowboy with a badge. He was smart, methodical, and patient. Hamer studied Clyde's patterns, roots, and habits. He came to the realization that Clyde never stayed in one place for too long. Clyde always circled back to Texas and Louisiana, usually somewhere near old allies or family members. Hamer set out to track them, one lead at a time. But back then, evidence was hard to come by. No fingerprints, no surveillance cameras, no DNA. But what they did have was word of mouth. Police pieced together every sighting they had of Bonnie and Clyde: a stolen Ford in Oklahoma, a robbery in Kansas, a family visit in Dallas. They compared tire tracks, stolen license plates, and witness descriptions. Hamer followed this trail for 3 whole months. Oftentimes, he was just hours or days behind the couple. He began to map out their travel patterns, what back roads they took, what kind of places they stayed at, hidden areas to stay low for a little while. Eventually, after digging for quite some time, a familiar name came up over and over: Henry Methvin. Methvin was a young outlaw who had recently joined Bonnie and Clyde, but what Hamer didn't know was that Henry's father, Ivy Methvin, could be the key to the entire manhunt. By summer of 1934, Hamer's posse was made up of 6 officers from Texas and Louisiana. They learned that Bonnie and Clyde were hiding near the Methvin's family farm in Parrish, Louisiana. Law enforcement used this leverage to set a trap. It is said that Henry Methvin's father agreed to help out the police if they guaranteed his son's safety. Whether this was out of fear, guilt, or strategy, he told them exactly where Clyde planned to drive next. The officers set up an ambush on a quiet stretch of Highway 154. They parked their vehicles behind bushes, loaded their rifles, and then the waiting began. They waited for hours until the early morning of May 23, 1934. They heard the sound of a car. It was the sound of Clyde's stolen Ford. Bonnie was also with him. When the car slowed to a stop, officers opened fire. In less than 20 seconds, they fired more than 130 rounds of ammo. Clyde was instantly killed with a gunshot to the head. Bonnie, stuck screaming in terror, was shot several times. When gunfire stopped, both of them were left dead. Inside the car, the police found stolen weapons, money, and personal items. News spread fast about the events of that morning. People came swarming the crime scene before police could even clear the area. For law enforcement, this was a huge victory. The evidence, the tracking, and the betrayal evidently led to the end of this wild crime spree. You've been listening to the Bonnie and Clyde Born for Trouble podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow along for the last part of this series.